What's good, everybody? It is your boy Malik Washington back at it again with another episode of Breaking Mental Barriers. Ladies and gentlemen, have you missed me? Have you been wondering where the hell has this nigga been all this fucking time? For those of you who are old time listeners, probably not. And I understand. I'm a nobody. But nonetheless, I'm still lovable though. And you still love this beautiful face of mine. No, I'm just messing with y'all. How y'all doing this fine day or evening, wherever y'all reside? I pray that all is well and that you all are enjoying yourselves and your December. I know everybody was having a great time. You know, it's Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and all these other different holidays that people have set up. So I'm sure there's a lot of joy and spirits going around this time of month. But the last thing to be celebrated is the new year. So a pre-happy new year for you, to you all, in case you don't hear from me again, because, you know, as you all know, I have been gone for a very, very long time. I'll give it about a couple of months or so. Hasn't been too long, but long enough, right? So, once again, apologies about that. A lot of things have been happening. A lot of vicissitudes in my life have been shifting. In case any of you don't know what that means, there's been a lot of volatility, a lot of up and downs, left and rights. There's been good and bad. So for the most part, I've just been adapting to whatever situations I've been put in. And I've been adjusting relatively well for the most part. But I can't complain nonetheless through the good or the bad. Things happen. You all know me. I'm a realist. Things happen and you just have to try to adapt to whatever you can, and whatever solutions come available. Use them to your discretion. Use them at your disposal as soon as possible. So that is my current situation, but I hope you all are doing very well, and I hope that you all are having a good time with your families and your friends, or whoever it is that you call a family member or a friend. Yeah. And I also wonder how you all have you all had a good year? Was it good? Was it bad? Was it so? You know, whatever it is, let your boy know. If you don't want to let me know, that's fine, and you just want to listen, that's great. Don't care either way. Nonetheless, let's dive right on in. I guess for this episode, it's just going to be, I guess, a general overview of what wasn't discussed. I kind of jotted down to like 3 different topics that we're going to amalgamate into one. So the first one, we were going to pretty much talk about my city, Chicago, maybe go a little bit into the other cities that have been going through the same intersectional issue, which is violence and specifically gun violence throughout, you could say, various states, various Democratic states. I haven't really been hearing a lot from the Republican states, but that's not to say that Republican states don't have their gun violence issues nonetheless. But ultimately, you hear a lot of crime, especially when it relates to organized crime, robberies, and assaults, you name it. It's been happening in Democratic centered cities, Democratic controlled cities. Chicago, or Illinois to be more general, is a Democratic state. And as we all know, as Chicagoans, or people who have lived in Chicago and they decided to move to states like Florida or Texas or Atlanta, Chicago is a rough city it's a beautiful city. It's a lovely city to live in. It's a wonderful state to reside in if you were either born in it or if you moved into it from another country or another state. Chicago has its ups and downs. Chicago has its benefits, but it also has its liabilities if you live here. Nonetheless, it is overall a good place to live in for you and your family. There's many things to do here. There's a lot of diversity. There's a lot of inclusivity in certain places. Certain neighborhoods are obviously segregated for whatever their reasons are, but nonetheless, wherever you may go, Chicago has beautiful landscapes. It's actually considered to be I believe it's like either the second or the third most beautiful places to visit in the United States. So it definitely made the roster. However, Chicago has its dark corners, obviously. And one of those major dark corners that we tend to face as Chicagoans that we have to deal with every day is gun violence. And that is a major issue simply because gun violence has been a very big issue in Chicago since Chicago has been here. I would even say, having only been around since obviously 1995, but when I was able to remember what I remember, Richard M. Daley was actually the mayor of Chicago at that particular time. Him, and then there was Rod Blagojevich. That's the guy's name. I was trying to remember his name earlier, but now it just came to me. Amazing how that fucking works. But anyway, Richard M. Daley was the mayor of Chicago, and the city was not doing so well. Around that time frame, the Gangsta Disciples were actually the major proponents of violence around that time. It had actually been discussed that they were the most dangerous gang, one of the most dangerous gangs in the United States, more specifically in the city of Chicago. Chicago has now become known under new leadership, obviously, as Chiraq, which is, you all know what that means. I don't even have to get into that. With that being said, you obviously know, with that name being reserved exclusively for Chicago, the city is going through a lot of turmoil in terms of criminals constantly running rampant and killing people, more specific, particularly people of color. This is something that is not often well addressed. And I will not entirely blame Lori Lightfoot for the violence that has transpired in Chicago, because violence did not begin and end with Lori Lightfoot, obviously. But under the leadership and the watchmanship of Lori Lightfoot, crime has risen. It has not plummeted, diminished, waned, you name it. Nothing has happened. It literally continues to rise. It's actually gotten worse since Richard M. Daley. And that's simply because, well, there's a few factors in it. First of all, I believe it's a lack of attention to detail as to what's causing the violence. Obviously, guns themselves do not cause violence. The people who wield them cause violence. Before guns are given, there should, in my humble opinion, be a psychological evaluation of the people who wield guns, because obviously the people who wield them have worst intentions. At least if you do a psychological evaluation, you can kind of get an assessment of where that person's mind frame is and how they're able to deal with or combat very pressuring situations. So much so it will at least help give you a synopsis of whether if this person is willing or able to wield a gun or practice their Second Amendment right. I believe in guns. I believe that guns are necessary for protection, just like a sword, just like a rock, just like your own two fucking fists. If somebody try to throw hands with you, you be ready to throw hands back at them if they come at you, right? It's very simple. We all have something on us, even if it's our own person, that will be wielded as an aggressive object if need be, if someone tries to attack you or tries to antagonize your life in any way, shape, or form. Unfortunately, there are always amongst us bad seeds who seek to do bad things for their own ulterior purposes. And what we tend to have in Chicago, Illinois, is a lot of crime syndicates being organized, especially by a lot of dumb criminals who put their business out on social media, which a lot of us have a very big tendency to do. Every little thing that we do or say, we basically type it in, whatever our thoughts are, and then the click of a button, everybody fucking knows what you're doing in the bathroom, what you're doing outside, where you're going tomorrow, where you're going the following week, you name it. Because people need attention and people want to create a lifestyle on the internet. They put out whatever they want. And I don't knock anybody for doing whatever it is they want to do on the internet. But just calling it like I see it, that we do tend to become our own grapevines, if you will, right? We tend to be the ones that whisper to other people our business, and then we wonder why people are in our business. Like, you put it out there for the public to see, and I've seen some people do it, even on my own timeline on social media. Some people always say, I don't understand why people are in my business, but yet they are not cognizant of the fact that they put their business out there for people to give criticism as to what the hell they're doing. And it's like, why the hell did you put it out there if you didn't want nobody to give comment to what you just said or did? Like, that literally makes no sense. But logic is dying in this country, as well as common sense. Nonetheless, getting off topic, back to Lori Lightfoot. Lori Lightfoot has not been putting her foot on the ground in terms of how she's been handling crime in the city. It doesn't seem like a lot of the funding that she got to give to the police has been utilized. Well, it's being utilized now, but there's not much policing being done in terms of how they're handling crime. There was a point in time when Donald J. Trump was in office, and I know a lot of you may not like him, but there are some who do. There are some who don't, and that's fine. But let's be objective here when we're talking about this. When Donald J. Trump had offered to Lori Lightfoot some federal help for Chicago, Lori Lightfoot said that she did not want her or Governor Pritzker, didn't want anybody from the federal government to help, simply because she felt like he was going to come in, him and his people, they were going to come in, be dictators, and try to dictate to them how their city should be ran. Now, and all because of political gain, and because they did not want Trump to get a name or, any kind of spotlight in the limelight regarding crime in the city, because it would go to show that Lori Lightfoot is horrible as a leader. She doesn't know how to handle crime in her city. She comes across as this person that's very pompous. Now that all of a sudden that Joe Biden is in office, now she's crying for help from the federal government. But everybody sees the hypocrisy, because the question literally everyone asks, and it doesn't matter if they're black or white, why didn't you get the help from Donald J. Trump when he asked you if you required it? He literally was willing to send in X amount of federal investigators to come in and be able to see the migration of where these guns are coming from, so that it can at least lessen the sources of the crime, of where the crimes are stemming from, and why we're getting so many people of color going around shooting each other, not knowing how to shoot the guns in the first place, and then causing people who are misidentified targets to become targets in the crossfire. So what you have is a lot of people are getting killed for beefs and skirmishes that they're not even a part of. And ultimately, children are becoming big proponents in these matters, and they have nothing to do with it. You literally have fathers who are gangbangers whose children are becoming targets because the gangbanger that's targeting the father, who is also a gangbanger, does not give a fuck about their family members, much less about them. And henceforth leads to that child, as well as other children within the surrounding, within proximity, it leads to them getting killed as well, either shot in the head, in the back of the neck, you name it. And boom, you're gone from this world. That's it. Because clearly people of color who are doing these crimes, not all of them, but people of color who are doing these crimes don't care at all about what other people are facing or what they're going through in the times that they're going through. So now you have to deal with the violence in Chicago, plus your own issues back at home. You can't even walk outside without somebody either mean mugging you or being ready to kill you in Chicago, because clearly these people think that they could just do what they want to do, because Lori Lightfoot, in the name of being a woman and in the name of being a black person in office, you can't give her criticisms on absolutely nothing. Blame it on white supremacy, blame it on white privilege, blame it on the fact that white people are just pompous assholes and they don't want to see a strong lesbian black woman in the office, which has absolutely nothing to do with it. There have been multiple criticisms, not just from white people. There have also been criticisms from black people as well about Lori Lightfoot's leadership. And then there's this whole defund the police movement. Because the biggest reason why a lot of crime is running rampant in the city is because there are a lack of police officers. Gangbangers actually outnumber police officers 10-1. It's just that bad, or it might be 8-1. I forget. I hate to not have my statistics right, but I believe it is 10-1. Nonetheless, crime in the city is running rampant because the police officers are outnumbered. There's not enough people that are willing to fight against the crime. You do have people who want to go into policing, but what is happening is that they're afraid. And the reason that they are afraid is ultimately, and I hate to say it, but it reigns true, people of color have created an edges around themselves. What has transpired is that ever since the Trayvon Martin incident and when Black Lives Matter came into the situation, crying racism and white supremacy at every given turn. Like, you literally can't tell them anything. You can't criticize them for anything, because if you do, it's because you're unconsciously, biasly racist and all these other different things. Literally, black people get away with anything. And the card that is often used, if you as a non-black person say anything to a black person, is you're a racist. You're a white supremacist. You're privileged. You can't say anything to me. But black people certainly forget. Other black people criticize black people too. But then they call those black people black white supremacists. So what's happening is that there's a lot of these shutdown terminologies being used by politically leftist blacks who personally believe that the country is, well, racist. And some black people don't believe that it's racist. Does it require a lot of reform and changes or alterations? Absolutely. Does that mean that the entire system needs to be torn down? Not necessarily. Some people benefit from the system, whereas some people don't. So even if you do tear it down, you have to have an alternative. The alternatives could be socialism or communism, but the majority of Americans don't believe in socialism or communism. Neither do I. Because those are failed practices. Those are failed governments. Capitalism is not perfect either, but it gets the job done nonetheless. We live in a capitalist society. But in Illinois, or specifically in Chicago, not having enough police officers will lead to the federalization of police, which is what defunding the police does. It takes away local and municipal police and it replaces them with people from the federal government. And you don't want those people to become police, because then that's militarization. They have military-like policing. That's nothing like state and local. And you don't want that. But yet people on the left have been calling for things like this. Defunding the police, getting rid of their pensions until they learn to comply with what we're demanding as leftists or progressives of the United States. All police officers can't do their job. More specifically, non-black police officers cannot do their jobs when it comes to people of color. They don't want to be labeled racist. So naturally, Chicago is going to face a deficit in number because we continue to antagonize people who become police officers. We don't treat certain police officers like human beings. And as much as we say, well, not all police officers, we certainly treat all police officers the same as the very corrupt police officers that we talk about, which is very few of them and in between. But here we are. And so Chicago faces a lot of, you could say, they face a lot of turmoil. They face a lot of crime. They face a lot of criminal opportunists who will organize these crimes on social media. As I say, you have people who have secret Facebook groups and they put their business out on Facebook to commit these crimes on purpose. As we've seen in downtown Chicago. You can't, I believe most of the luxurious stores is located on Michigan Avenue. But man, you can't even go down there without somebody being ready to smash and grab millions of dollars of watches and Lamborghinis. But let some of these leftist black people tell you it's okay for that to happen because they can pay the deductibles anyway. But what you all don't understand is people of color work in those very stores that they're getting robbed from. It takes away jobs from the very people that you say that you love. Even if you are just pro-black and you don't care about white people, your own people work for white people. So what you're arguing is that because you don't own it, it doesn't matter to you. But it would matter to you if you did own it, would it not? Because crime, robberies have not just been happening exclusively to, let's say, white people. It's been happening to everybody. Asians, Indians, blacks, you name it. It doesn't matter who it is. Criminals don't discriminate. Black opportunists, even whether they coming from the hood or high up, they don't discriminate. You're getting robbed. If we want your watch or if we want the clothes off of your back or the shoes on your feet, niggas don't care about you being black. They will use the climate that you've created for yourselves as you could say, an opportunity or an opening to make the excuse of, oh, well, because I'm black, I can do this. You know, they could just come along and just say, hey, power to the people. I'm just here to get what's mine. You know what I'm saying? Slavery was a long time ago. I'm just getting reparations. You know how Negroes are. Give them an inch, they gonna go a mile. Give an ignorant one an inch, they definitely gonna go a mile. They don't care about you. But let a black person tell it, oh, they're doing it in the name of reparations. Y'all just giving them excuses, giving them the benefit of the doubt in the name of color. And that's what's happening with Lori Lightfoot. You can't criticize her on anything because she's a black person. Black people can do no wrong. And that's what we have established as a precedent when we want to talk about violence in the city or white on black crime and all these different things. And we want people to pander to us, and people pander to us because they have low expectations of us, which leads to us being able to do whatever we want. And we look bad, whether if we want to admit it or not, because we're not being shown any form of respect, or we're not being challenged. So we're subjected to just act like children. And every other race will think the same about us. That we cannot handle common sense. That we cannot handle pressure. That we can't handle life hardships, which we have been known for doing since the time of slavery. But now all of a sudden, in the past decade, black people can't do anything because of a few advantages that one race has over the other. Neither here nor there, we're going to move on to the second topic that I would like to dig into. And that is about Joe Biden. Now, I'm not going to delve too deep into it, but obviously this guy has mental deficiencies. He's not befitting for a president, in my humble opinion. Some people don't. Some people can see it. Some people don't. Some people are allowing him to just run in the office. I don't think that his mental health is good for where he's at. The man looks like he's one foot in the grave and 1 foot on living land. Me personally, I think the guy needs to step down. But you don't get any better if you're talking about Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris hasn't done her job either as a vice president. But most people, when they see the vice president's office anyway, it's just a status. A lot of people that get in there, they're not really doing what they're supposed to do in the first place. Because when people think of a VP, they're just like, well, what the hell does the VP do? Except for those who are in the White House and they can see first hand experience what the VP is doing. But us on the outside looking in, we're just like, what the hell do they do? Because Kamala Harris hasn't done anything. And ever since the border crisis situation with all of the illegal immigrants coming in, these people are just swarming in. But Kamala Harris hasn't even been to the border. But let her tell it. She's been everywhere else but the border. But yet she wants to complain that, oh, well, the job is hard. Well, no job is supposed to be easy. If every job was easy, there wouldn't be a job. By her logic, there's no way you would have a job if it was easy. If the flow of operations in a corporation was well, why would they need to hire an administrative assistant? If a CEO was able to organize all of their meetings, all of their travel plans, all of their correspondence, you name it, why would they require an executive assistant? There would be no need for it, because obviously it's easy. I don't hire someone for something that doesn't require any kind of help. If there's a deficiency in something, I'm going to hire them because of that deficiency. And I need that deficiency to become proficiency so that the company can continue to rise and do better. They can't do better if we're doing worse. Nonetheless, Joe Biden, and like I've said in the beginning, for those that have been watching for a little while, Joe Biden is necessary for this particular presidency. And the reason why I say that, because in the beginning, as you all know, what happened, I want to say like last year or so, this year. When was the January 6th? I believe it was last year. But we had the January 6th issue, right? And around that time frame, people were looking for Donald J. Trump. Well, the ones that voted for Donald J. Trump wanted Donald J. Trump to become the next president, the continuing president, right? Consecutively for a second term. But he didn't because, well, conservatives, liberals, and independents alike decided to take a chance on Joe Biden because they did not like the climate of which Donald J. Trump created. The media really harped in on the fact that, well, he was racist. He's a white supremacist. He does not denounce racism. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. Mainstream media, that is, they hardly harped in on his accomplishments. That man didn't do completely everything wrong, even because if he did, Biden would not be trying to re-implement some of the things that he took away. Right. And then some. But nonetheless, Trump did do things that were good as well as he did things that were bad. But media harped in more so on his words, rather more so than on his actions. Right. And so they also focused on things that were minor, not things that were major. Now we have President Joe Biden, but President Joe Biden is not doing so well. As you can already see, he did very bad when it came to getting the U.S. citizens out of Afghanistan and ending that 20 plus odd year war that we had been fighting since the time of 9/11. We should have been took them out. This way, this wouldn't have even been a conversation. But due to the fact that Biden did not listen to his intelligence when he was offered the plan on how to get them out of there safely without having the Taliban coming in and then just swarming in on everybody, implementing their plans, Biden left tons of U.S. military equipment behind. That is worth millions of dollars, not to mention got X amount of U.S. citizens killed in the process, and then promised an X amount of Afghanis that they'd be able to come to the United States. And then they're not vaccinated at all, but yet the American people have to be vaccinated, but they don't have to be vaccinated whatsoever. They're being resettled here and dispersed throughout all different four corners of the United States. You have that issue. But then you have the fact that Joe Biden has a speech impediment. He cannot speak very well. He cannot articulate. He's getting older. Clearly, maybe around 15, 20 years ago, Biden would have been able to manage it. I mean, I've seen videos of him speaking to Congress, speaking to the courts, you name it, and he's very articulate. Well, obviously, because he was younger, he at least had some form of cognitive function. But right now, his cognitive function is waning over time. He couldn't do a second term. His approval ratings are plummeting simply because inflation. Simply because he wants to put too much money into the economy, and putting too much money into the economy creates inflation. We are putting more into it than we can pay back. We are already at I think our deficit is like what, in the 20s now, like 26 trillion, somewhere around that. We're creating more of a debt than we are diminishing the debt. So the United States is dealing with a lot of financial literacy issues, but Biden is only making it worse. Let him tell it. He's going to end inflation for the American people, but he hasn't done that. Gas prices are up. Groceries are high. We're paying a lot for food or for bread and water than we typically do. Taxes are high as well. The American people can't stand inflation. They can't stand inflation. Our gas is going up high. Our electricity is going up high. All these different things are happening, right? Joe Biden has done a lot more harm than he has done good within his first, 12 years? 12 years, good grief. 12 months to a year in his presidency. And already, I want to say around 70%, over 70% of Americans don't believe he's running the presidency very well. He's running the country very well. Literally only 20 something odd percent of people agree that he's even running it well. And those numbers are still plummeting even unto today. With that being said, Joe Biden is showing the American people, including some of his own constituents, he's not befitting to run office. He's not a good president. He's just not. Neither is Kamala Harris. But the problem is that the American people, and this is their fault, this is our fault in particular as a collective, and this is good though. And I've said this in the beginning. It's good that this is happening because it's necessary. I believe Biden is a necessary tool in order to show the American people their flaws. Because the problem is that the American people have been, in my opinion, asleep and completely blind to the realities of our current situation for too long. Joe Biden simply has come in and he has proven that you need to see what these people are capable of and what they're actually looking for and how this actually works. Because what the progressives and what the leftists are seeking is not good for the benefit of this country. It diminishes our independence and it makes us completely dependent of everybody else, including communist China and communist Russia. And we definitely don't want that. America has always been independent. Now we've become energy dependent, right? We got this inflation situation going on. We got the gas prices going up because he took away the pipeline. We got the illegal immigration crisis coming in with illegal immigrants swarming the country. And that's not good either, especially for people of color who are in the impoverished or in the low class, because much of the job infrastructure is surrounding hardworking Americans. And people of color are already at the bottom of the totem pole. If you take illegal immigrants and you put them in these very positions, the problem is going to be is that they're going to take positions that people of color could have, but they're going to take it for less. And if the corporations know that they can buy people for less money for working more hours, they're going to hire them before they hire you. So even though you think that you're worth being paid what you're willing to service to the American people or even to that particular company, they're going to give those hard paying jobs to the immigrants, because the immigrants, they want the American dream just as badly as you do, or even more so. And Joe Biden, by him allowing them over here because of political reasons, obviously he wants to create more of a Democratic base for the Democratic Party. He's allowing them to come over and just basically become a voting base, to become a foundation, despite the fact that they came over here illegally. So all of what I'm saying when it comes to Joe Biden, he has not been doing his job. Now he's got 3 years to go and he can get his numbers up. I won't deny that. He can get his numbers up. He can rise and become a better president. But it's a necessary evil for this to happen, ladies and gentlemen, because sometimes when you get a bad leader, A bad leader shows bad infrastructure of the country. It shows the corruption in the country's leadership and how a country is ran. It's necessary for this to happen because if Joe Biden did not show up and Donald Trump became the president, guess what the media will just simply harp on? Donald J. Trump's words. Hardly ever do they harp on his actions. And I noticed that while listening to people like MSNBC and CNN. They don't focus on the accomplishments. They don't focus on the bad actions that he's done. Well, they focused on a few, but not enough, right? They criticize a lot on the things that he says. And the issue with that is because Trump is constantly on Twitter talking shit when he should be continuing to be a president. If you focused more on the actions, not so much on what someone says, maybe, just maybe, you might begin to see that Trump was a relatively better president than Joe Biden is right now, because Joe Biden is fucking up the country. Trump actually tried to keep the country first. He tried to keep the economy running. He tried to keep people of color in jobs. The unemployment rate was at an all-time low. You had a lot of these different things going on. HBCUs had funding up to 10 plus years. As much as they said that he was a racist guy, despite him saying all of these racist things, he actually did things that helped black people. Whereas if the HBCUs went to the Democratic Party, they would have never gotten that amount of funding, that up to 10 plus years. If they went to Joe Biden right now, they would have just been getting annual funding, instead of just giving them a set amount that will let them last for the next decade. But let the leftists tell it, well, he's a racist man, but he wasn't racist before he became president. Now, mind you, as you can obviously tell, I have clearly voted for Trump, but if I were to vote for him again, I probably wouldn't, because I think that the man is inconsistent. But I've discussed that in previous videos. If you want to go into why I felt that way, you can look at my previous videos to find out what my reasons were behind why I had stopped voting, why I am not going to vote for Trump if he does run for 2024. I have my reasons why, but I would never vote for Joe Biden either. So that's the gist on that. As far as the last topic, and I'll probably keep it relatively short, we have these mandates. I don't agree with the mandates. I never have. I never will. I believe that it has some political implications to it. I believe that there is an agenda behind why they are implementing these vaccinations. The vaccinations are supposed to be to help boost your immunity against various variants, or more specifically to target COVID-19 in case it does enter your body and it tries to destroy what you have in there. But the issue that I have with the vaccinations is not the vaccinations themselves. It's the people that are trying to coerce them onto others and make them put jabs in their arms, not knowing if these inoculations are going to relatively destroy their immune systems or give them allergic reactions. But we are actually trying to recommend to people that it's okay for you to put this jab in there. And then if something happens to you at the end of the day, you can't sue us for it. You have to sign an actual agreement that lets them know that you did this on your own volition, and they will not be responsible for any of the side effects that happens as a result of this. And in the name of an existential crisis, everybody must comply, which I think is totally wrong, because everyone has a right to be able to say no. And simply having the right to say no is apparently dangerous, because in the name of a public health crisis, let Dr. Fauci tell it, doesn't matter this is not a matter of freedom. This is a matter of safety. But if Americans traded their freedoms for security and safety, that's tyranny, because then you all have the control, and Americans can't say no anymore, and Americans can't live their lives, and Americans can't say, I don't want this shit anymore, and you're not going to force me to have it. Me personally, no, I have not gotten vaccinated, and simply for that reason. You're not going to tell me what I cannot do with my body. It's just not going to happen. And I'm just going to keep it simple and keep it on that note. So I'll leave it right there for now. It's going on 40 minutes. My name is Malik Washington. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a good day or good night wherever you reside. And I thank you for listening if you got this far. With this, I say peace. Until next time.